Welcome to the Richard and Judy Book Club and another of our recommended summer reads. A good title for a summer read, The Summer of the Bear by Pollen. It's an unusual book, this. It's quite hard to describe, but very easy to read. I would say it's rather old-fashioned. It's delightful, and it has a delightful finish with a touch of metaphysics. It's a great story, Bella. It's basically set in the Cold War, 1979. And it involves a family whose father, the husband and father, is a diplomat in Bonn, in West Germany. But we're pretty sure that he's a spook as well. And he does a bit of jiggery-pokery between West and East Germany, involving a fateful journey with his eldest daughter, who's 17, to East Berlin. We'll say no more about that, but it's pivotal to the story. And then very early on in the book, in the first chapter indeed, he dies. He falls from the roof of the British Embassy in Bonn. And immediately, remembering this is the Cold War, a cloud of suspicion falls upon him, indeed the family really. Was he a double agent? Why was he on the roof of the embassy? Did he fall? Was he pushed? What the heck's going on? And his family, his destroyed wife, the eldest daughter who's 17, the 14-year-old daughter, Alba, and the little boy, little son, he's 7, isn't he, in the story?
8,
yeah.
I'm
sorry, he's 8. They retreat to the island, one of the Outer Hebrides, where they have a family home, to try and come to terms over this summer with not only the death of the father and husband, the beloved father and husband, but also why it happened. What's the truth behind all the rumours that are swirling around? And at the same time, the eponymous bear, based on the real-life Hercules the bear, who did actually do this in the 1980s, he escapes from his owners and he swims across to the same island that they're on, and he's in hiding, while they're, in a sense, in hiding. And the two stories very slowly start to draw together. It's an extraordinary tale. Did it just drop into your head out of a clear blue sky one day, or have you been working on this for a while?
Well, no, I mean, first of all, I knew the story of Hercules because I used to go to the Outer Hebrides for my summer holidays.
That's why you write about it with such a sense of place. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we lived in New York and we went every summer we went to the Outer Hebrides and we spent the whole summer there. And Hercules was loose one whole summer when we were there. Right. So this story stayed with me really throughout my childhood, and I've always in the back of my mind thought, I must do something with it. It would make a fantastic kid's story, you know, a Disney movie, something. And I was having lunch with my agent, and I was talking about ideas for another book, and I said, you know, I want to write a book about, you know, grief and communication and death and how people come to terms with it. And I want to write this kid's book about a bear. And she went, merge them. And so I went, oh, okay. And I sort of went home and I thought, well, that's a completely ridiculous idea. And then I just thought about it, and I suddenly realised that the overwhelming memory of this bear escape had been this idea of why he'd done it. Why had he run away? What was he thinking? What was going on in his head?
And why didn't he kill anybody or anything?
Why didn't he kill anybody? Why hadn't he reverted to the wild? Why hadn't he behaved, you know, as a grizzly bear should? And was there any truth to this idea that the wrestler, his owner, believed that he had a half-human heart, you know, that the soul of the wrestler had somehow transferred into his animal to really humanise him, and that's why he'd never hurt another living soul. And the more I thought about that, the more I thought that this was a lovely idea, and I could somehow make this work within the context of a story about a death and about grief.
Well, let me tell you, you have made it work. It's a remarkable achievement, it really is.
So you actually did quite a bit of research about the bear himself and about old Hercules. You said you went up to meet him.
Yes, I never met the bear. Sadly, when I was researching the story, I mean, Hercules died about 7 or 8 years ago now. Right. But I managed to track down the wrestler, Andy Robin, and his wife. And they live in the Big Bear Ranch in Perthshire, and I went up to see them. And, you know, they live in this extraordinary place covered in memorabilia of Hercules and statues and, you know, the pool where he swam and where he's buried. And they're both most extraordinary characters. And their story of how they trained this bear and how they loved this bear and treated him really as a son, as a surrogate son, was very affecting and completely charming. And I really just ran with it.
It's a very literal story in some ways. Shades of Le Carré, actually, when you go back to these Cold War episodes. Also very funny. I love the way that the British ambassador's wife tries to get our central character's wife to sort of toe the line and wear gloves in public. And when they go to their first ambassador's ball or party, it's made very clear to her that she's not allowed, to the widow-to-be, that she's not allowed to be with her husband at these dues. The moment they enter the door, she fades into the background and he moves into the limelight. And she kind of rebels against this, and they both think it's it's rather funny. And then tragedy happens. And as I say, it moves forward in quite a linear, literal way. But gradually, you realise as you read the chapters to do with the bear, that the bear is becoming more and more humanised, because you describe the bear as you describe his thoughts and his observations. And initially, when he first appears, it's very simple. Very animalistic. But gradually he's starting to use quite complicated language, and he's starting to have complicated thoughts, particularly about the family and in particular about the little boy. And I suddenly realised about halfway through that I was coming to a point, we all are as readers, where we're going to have to suspend our disbelief because something strange is happening here. There is a metaphysical connection between this bear and in particular the little boy, without giving too much away. And it's going to get, it's going to get more intense. And I must say, you did that beautifully. It was a bit like Time Traveller's Wife, where we have to believe in time travel to get the story. Completely got it. And the bittersweet ending was tears to the eyes. It was really remarkable. No, absolutely remarkable. Did you find that difficult? I mean, it's a very tricky part of the story. What happens to the bear?
I mean, the bear itself was a tricky part of the story to write, as you say, because how much do you give him? How much vocabulary do you give him? How much feeling do you give him? And the idea was, and I think that it's not really a spoiler to say that this child comes to believe that the spirit of his father has passed into this bear, and that he's come back to revisit him as the bear. What I tried to achieve was this idea that the bear, when he stumbles across the child, because he's watching, when he first lands on the island, he doesn't know where he is, he doesn't know what he's doing, but he just has this thought that he can't really isolate or pinpoint that there's something he's supposed to be doing or something that he's looking for. And it's not until he actually physically sees the child that these sort of threads of memory start to come back to him. And he realises slowly that he has another purpose. And he doesn't really know what that purpose is. And he looks for that purpose as the story goes on, and as Jamie kind of progressively becomes more and more fixated on this idea.
It's almost like Philip Pullman, isn't it?
Yes, very good analogy.
His bears, and especially the bear, I've forgotten his name now, the one who becomes so close to Lyra.
Well, the fighting bear, the armoured bear.
Yeah, and sort of regards it as his purpose to save her.
To protect her and save her.
Yeah.
It's very poignant that the two older children, the 14-year-old Alba and her older sister, who's 17, they know that their father's dead. They know exactly how he's dead and what's happened, although they don't know the story behind it. But Jamie isn't told that. His mother just can't bring herself to say that your father's dead, so she explains to him that he's been an accident. And it's almost funny when he says, well, what's he hurt? There's a pause, and the mother says, well, everything really. But she doesn't go quite as far as to tell him that he's dead, just that he's gone missing, that he's lost. So Jamie, amongst them, is the only one who, for most of the book, doesn't realise that Dad is dead, or Dada, as you call him. So it's so poignant as they make their way, this lonely, horrible journey from Germany all the way back to the islands in their knackered old Peugeot. He tries to leave messages for his father in service stations, little notes saying where they're going, because he's got a feeling that he'll be following him. And even when he gets to the island, he writes messages in bottles and says, we're here, Dada, we're here, and he draws a little map and stuff. It just brings tears to the eyes. And crucially, that bottled message bobs around, is washed into the cave where the bear is. Yeah. And the bear gets the message.
And the bear sort of recognises something, but he doesn't know what.
Yeah.
But Jamie suffers from, Jamie has some form which I didn't really name in the book.
Asperger's?
But nobody really knew. I mean, in those days, dyslexia and all this, they were so unexplored.
It's dyspraxia, really, I think, is isn't it?
Well, dyspraxia, I think, is a more physical thing, okay. but it is some kind of autism. And as the doctor says in this book, it's newly arrived from America, this piece. And but nobody really knows that he has something wrong with him, and he also has this thing called literalism, which means that he is incapable of picking up on the nuances of sarcasm or humour or metaphor.
That is Asperger's, isn't it? It is Asperger's, yeah.
And therefore, that's why his mother won't tell him that his father is dead, because she can't bear to use this language that she knows would really frighten him. And he's been horrified by his grandfather's cremation, for instance.
Right.
And the middle sister, the monstrous middle sister, Alba.
I rather liked Alba, actually.
Everybody loves Alba, of course. I mean, she's the sort of spoiled devil, but she takes no prisoners. But in fact, even though she tortures her brother for this, and she sort of despises the fact that he's sheltered so much, she is the only one in the whole story advocating the truth. And advocating the fact that he should be told, and it's not good for him to be kept in this fantasy world because he lives so much in his head already. And whilst everybody else seems to go along with this very sort of 70s idea of grief, which was, it should be kept from the children. So Alba, I think, really, in a way, is very pivotal to this story.
Oh, indeed,
Well-
and right to the final episode. I mean, it's absolutely pivotal. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It's one of the books that you put on a shelf and you finish and think, I'll come back to that and read that again in about a year. I'll enjoy this again. It's one of those. And if you've never been to the Hebrides, as we haven't, although we have been to the western coast of Scotland,
They sound gorgeous.
you make it sound
They are,
absolutely
they're
stunning. Well, look at that
wonderful.
picture. I mean, it's absolutely great. Anyway, you can find out more about the book, more about the author, more about what we think of it in our reviews, what you think about it in the reviews that you've posted already, but you can keep them coming to the WHSmith website, which, as you know, is www.whsmith.co.uk/Richard and Judy. It's a great book for summer. Enjoy.
It's a summer book, The Summer Bear.